Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Film Optix review brought to you by the Drive-In Podcast Network. I'm your host, Christian, and today we're going to be reviewing His Dark Materials, Season 2, Episode 7, the finale, titled Aesahaettr. I'm joined, of course, by Griffin from Film Speak. How are you doing today, man? How was your Christmas?
It was great, man. Thank you for asking. A lot of fun. Made the best of a kind of less than stellar situation, but it was all good, man. Happy to be here and happy to talk about this finale because it's I think largely it was good and it was satisfying, but also there was it stumbled a little bit here and there, and it could be part of the reason could be because they had to scrap an episode due to the COVID pandemic. And so maybe having an extra episode in there would have made this finale a little bit more satisfying. But overall, really dug the emotions, really dug how they serviced the character arcs that they've been sort of exploring the whole season, and then really loved how they teed it up for the final season in season 3.
Yeah, I would totally agree there. And hopefully, like you said, with them scrapping that episode, I had no clue. I was like, oh, season 1 was 8 episodes. Season 2 is 7. I'm like, okay, maybe that's just the way it was planned. But watching this, I'm like, something feels like it's missing.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this is the best way to go into it, but like the Asriel stuff,
Yeah.
while it was excellent in the episode, and I was kind of waiting for that to happen, I feel like they needed an episode in between the last episode and the finale episode focusing on Asriel, because really as this episode sort of picks up and we see the angel that like went and like had the conversation with Asriel and those like bat things are flying around or whatever, it feels like we're jumping into an episode that like I thought I missed an episode before going into it, like
I agree.
it wasn't the logical jumping off point where last week sort of left it. And it is odd because unfortunately, due to the the pandemic and everything, and scrapping the Asriel episode, the meeting between Asriel and Ruta, it happens. It like happens off screen. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like a really weird sort of encounter, or it's not even an encounter, but it's just like a really weird thing that's sort of like you just kind of got to roll with it. You're just sort of like, oh, okay, this is odd, but sure, let's whatever. We'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah, and I think going into that, because we haven't seen Asriel all season. They've mentioned him here or there, and I was like, okay, well maybe he does. We've talked about this before. Maybe he serves more as that, like that Sauron figure, as in Lord of the Rings. He's never visibly present, but all this is happening because he tore a hole in the sky. So, and I was like, okay, maybe. And then it definitely feels like he's like talking to the angels. He's like, I know you're there. He's like, you better listen to what I gotta say. And they apparently a war is coming, which is huge.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
I mean, they've been basically teasing that the whole season, like that the the war for the sake of the world and to dismantle the establishment is basically coming, and Asriel sort of like leading the charge. And so like that part was okay, and I liked that we got to see him go and recruit a little bit and everything. But yeah, it is like with everything that was sort of happening, and this kind of goes into my main issue with the finale. It just felt like they had so many threads that they had to tie up, that they didn't necessarily make each and every one of them as satisfying as they should have been. Maybe an extra episode would have helped that. Maybe it wouldn't have, but they had a lot that they sort of had to juggle here, and for the most part they did it well. But they didn't necessarily stick each of them.
Yeah, and I was actually going to bring that up. Were you mentioning more of like the death of Will's father and the death of Lee Scoresby? Or are those two things that did those hit for you? Did those make sense, or did you feel like those were rushed? Because I am like kind of mixed. I watched it twice and I was like,
yeah,
I can kind of understand more in the second viewing, but I wanted to get your thoughts about that actually.
So Lee didn't necessarily bother me because I felt like they had sort of been leading up to that the
Hmm.
entire season. You know, basically from when he had that conversation with Mrs. Coulter in the prison cell, and he was sort of talking about the fact that he's like, listen, I'm just a cog in this machine, and I'm just here to serve Lyra because I care about her, and she is going to bring about the hope and salvation that we need to like save the universe or whatever. And
Right.
he believes in her. And so, like, I think knowing that he would sacrifice himself to save Lyra, I was always like, yeah, that's his path is probably always going to lead towards death. And you know, obviously, if you've read the books, that shouldn't come as a surprise. What
I
I
actually
will
bought the
say
books.
is, oh, did you really? Have you
Yeah, I
started
bought them. Yeah, early
them?
today at Barnes and Noble.
Nice,
I was like,
nice.
I'm going all in. Sorry,
Do it.
continue.
Yeah. Get no, no, no. Get ready for the Amber Spyglass.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like thematically and from like and just from like a pure plot and storytelling perspective, I think it works. That being
Mm.
said, well, and even somewhat of an emotional angle. I think the moments between him and I'm blanking on his demon's name for some reason, but him
I
and
am
his
too.
demon, their like final moments together are really touching, really heartfelt. They kind of like joke around about like some of their earlier adventures, and then him saying don't you leave before me, as they sort of like died together. Like that was really well done, and I think Lin-Manuel Miranda did a good job of selling those emotional moments. At first I was like, oh, this is kind of happening a bit abruptly. Like it just sort of like happened, like it just sort of like dumped you into this situation. It's like, okay, well, Lee's
Right.
gonna die now, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And I think it was kind of tragic that he didn't get to see Lyra one last time. That sort of
Mm.
made it feel a little it kind of left me a little unsatisfied because he literally sacrificed his life to save her, and she never saw him again.
Right.
And they never got to like it's like he was just putting so much faith into this person, and she will never know what happened to him. And it just sort of like that's where I go, that's I don't know how I feel about that. That's kind of, I mean, and I don't know if that's how it is in the book or whatever, but like I feel like there should have been like one brief encounter between the two of them. Maybe like, you know, not two birds out with one stone or something. Like maybe Japari and Will meet together and everything, and then at the same time Lee and Lyra come back together, and there's a great heartfelt moment there, and then the Magisterium sort of shows up, and then Lee has to tell them to go, and he stays behind and sacrifices himself. Big emotional moment like that. And then we get to the stuff that happens later on with Japari and Will, and Japari sacrificing himself for Will and everything. That's maybe one way you could have done it, but I think as a whole I was okay with it, but there were still some issues that it wasn't as satisfying as it could have been, I guess is what I'm saying there.
Yeah, it was very like the second time around, like I said, it did hit me a little bit more, but yeah, it did feel a bit rushed, and it kind of does suck, like you said, that Lee Scoresby wasn't able to see Lyra at least one more time, because the last time he saw her, I believe he was taking her to the Northern Lights when she fell out of his
Yeah,
aircraft. Yeah, that
yeah,
was like literally the
exactly.
last
It
time
was
they saw
just,
each other.
yeah, and it was just like there's a really unsatisfying way to conclude those
Yeah.
two characters' journey uh together. And I understand that sometimes how it is. Like sometimes like characters just don't um they don't get that closure that you necessarily want. But I think for it just would have made Lee's death so much more impactful or something.
Yeah.
So
Or
but
even
as
with
for
like
Japan,
Serafina Peckler as well, like because he kind of calls her
yeah,
to her aid, and then she gets there too late. I thought it was more of like an instant transmission thing, like boom, she's there,
yeah, right,
and it's like
yeah.
no, she's got to fly, and she's you know my gosh, Lyra's telling her to go, but then with Will's father, I don't really know how I
Yeah,
felt about that death.
that's the one that I didn't like. Yeah, the death of Japari, it just felt like he was sort of walking exposition the entire film, and I never really felt what I should have felt for him. Um, maybe like one time I did, but it was just sort of like, okay, so he's there to just tell Will that you can do this, kid, and then he just
He just
sacrifices himself. I
yeah,
mean, and
like
it was a really dumb thing too, because it's just like he turned around and let himself get shot. And I was just sort of like, okay, I get that maybe this is a journey he has to do alone, and that Japari's purpose was just to send the knife bearer on their way and then eventually die. But I don't know. That was like I was really disappointed with that character the whole season. Like they sort of built him up to be this like, I mean, he was like super powerful. Like he was a shaman and everything. We saw him in action and whatnot.
right.
But he just, the way Andrew Scott played him and the way he was written, he was very just bland. Like I got a sense of, there were like glimpses where like I got the humanity of the character. Like obviously when he's asking Will about uh, his wife, Will's mother, and everything. He's like, "Is she okay? What happened to her?" I was like, "Okay, so there's a little bit of like we're getting some of like the guy inside of this shaman's body or whatever like that. We're getting a
Yeah.
little bit of that humanity of the character. But it was like outside of that, it just sort of like disappeared, and he was just a very blank slate that I thought was going to be more important than he actually was. I'm sure you did as well. And I think ultimately
Yeah.
the way they wrapped up his character, like, yeah, it showed that he was willing to do whatever to save his son. But it was also like, is he saving his son, or is he just like making sure that the knife bearer can succeed on his mission? It was a little weird there, but I will say I do like how they kind of showed the dichotomy between Mrs. Coulter with Lyra and Will with his dad,
Yeah.
and like the differences between like how they're going about interacting with them. Like Mrs. Coulter is being very selfish, and she's like sheltering Lyra from fulfilling her prophecy or whatever
Snatched her
because
up.
of how,
Snatched
yeah,
her up.
yeah, because I mean, like, because of how that'll ultimately affect her, and then obviously we see Japari giving his life for his son, so his son can, succeed in his mission and save the world and whatnot. So, like, I thought that, intercutting was good, but I don't know. Yeah, that death didn't work for me, really.
No, not at all. I agree with you 100%. I was like, okay, okay, he just like he dies. Like, is that literally it? He
Yeah,
finally meets up with his son, and he's like, he gives him a pep talk, like you said, and he just
yeah,
sacrifices himself. I mean, like, it's okay, I guess. I mean, I can kind of understand. He kind of explained why he left. I mean, kind of, but not really. All he was like, oh, I tried to get back to you guys, but I thought in helping others, in turn, I could help you. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying there. And Will saying,
yeah.
you owe me explanations, not the other way around. And I mean, and I guess because there are some characters in stories that are literally created to just push the plot along. I think in it's either The Hobbit or I think it's Lord of the Rings. There was this Tom Bombadil character that like
Hmm.
completely just I think they were created for a specific reason in the book just to move the plot forward. But that happens in a lot of books and I mean in a lot of stories, but
Hmm.
maybe there's more to it, within the actual novel. I'm sure there is because even in Game of Thrones, there's a bunch of side plots and everything they left out
Yeah.
of that series. So
Well,
I'm
well,
gonna read through it and see what's up.
yeah. I'll say this. I think that while largely I was disappointed with Japari and how he, exited,
Mm,
I do think that that last moment where he like shares with Will, and Will's like, "We're gonna go home, right?" And he's sort of like, he knows the outcome. He knows it's not going to happen. Either
yeah,
Will's going to have to die, or Japari's going to have to die, or they're both going to have to die. And he just sort of like, it was a really good performance from Andrew Scott. Actually, I'll have to say, I thought he did an excellent job with the character in this episode. But like him, kind of looking down, looking around, and then like having to tell that lie to his son to calm him, I thought was beautiful, and that was a really tender moment there. Speaking of another great emotional moment, I think the moment between Pan and Will at the campfire, kind of talking about, what Lyra means to him and what he means to Lyra. Obviously Lyra's
Yeah.
been really grappling with the fact that she lost her best friend at the end of last season, and Roger, he's dead. Well, dead, quote unquote.
Oh, so you saw the post credit scene. Okay, I was gonna
I
ask you that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, I didn't. I think that's definitely exciting. But Lyra has really been grappling with that, and she thinks that it's her
Mm.
fault and everything. And so for them to sort of have that interaction, I thought was very beautiful. It really just spoke to their relationship the entire season and how it evolved, how Lyra made Will stronger, Will made Lyra stronger, and you know, they wouldn't be where they're at without each other. And so I thought that was just like really beautiful. And I thought it was a smart move to have Will talk to Pan about it, because Pan is obviously,
Yeah.
Lyra's like soul basically and everything. And so for him to really, talk to Pan on like a deeper level like that, it felt like he was really talking to, how Lyra is truly feeling. She kind of let her guard completely down, and I thought that was a nice touch. That was a nice touch.
Yeah, it really wasn't an emotional scene. Kind of them being, them being so young, them both being kids, but yet being so vulnerable and honest with each other. That's what I really liked about it as well. It was just literally just speaking from the heart, and that's all you can really do in these kind of situations. Like you said, Lyra she feels like she lets Roger down, with everything that happens. And she probably is
Hmm.
afraid that, they are supposed to protect each other. And she's probably afraid that she's going to let Will down in some way or let him die, even though he is, the knife bearer and she has the golden compass. I mean, they're pretty good, combination, a good, force to be reckoned with, at least. Of course, Lyra has her wits as well, but they didn't really address Will's hand as much. But I guess it's more of because Serafina Peckler said they needed to return back to their world once they found Will's father. But
Yeah.
obviously now things are kind of more in a mess because uh Mrs. Coulter is phenomenal as an actor, as Ruth Wilson is, just snatches up Lyra and puts her in um a I guess it's like a
It's like a
not a
trunk.
yeah, like a trunk. Yeah, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
blanking on the name. You don't see a lot of trunks in TV shows, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. But
I
speaking of
think
Will, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, with her doing that and everything, I mean, obviously the big reveal, we find out that Lyra is the new Eve, the mother of all, I think, as they put it and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it's her destiny to be tempted by a serpent of some sorts, and obviously the fate of the universe sort of rests as on whether or not she succumbs to it or not. And so, what is that serpent going to be? There's a lot to sort of uh, dissect and digest here. I mean, is that serpent going to be the prospect of Roger coming back? Some false
Oh.
hope or something like that. I don't know. I think Mrs. Coulter understands that what Lyra's true purpose is now, and she's gonna do everything she can to make sure that she doesn't uh succumb to the serpent, as I said. And so obviously that's why she's packed up in the trunk and whatnot. And so I have a feeling that Roger is going to be the temptation device here. I don't know. What do you think?
Ooh, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about it that way because as soon as they dropped her real name, it's like learning Jon Snow's true heritage, or
Hmm.
a whole Harry Potter, what Harry is to Voldemort type situation, because it was driving me insane. I didn't know what her name was, and I was so tempted to look online. I was like, if I
Hmm.
do, it's gonna spoil so much because I'm just gonna go deeper into that rabbit hole. And I was like, oh, what the witch had kind of just out and said her name to Mrs. Coulter. It was like Eve. I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But it was still really exciting to find out what her true prophecy name is, or her true name. But with Roger being the serpent, that, because I was like, maybe I'm like, okay, so is Will like the Adam figure? I'm assuming, but maybe Roger
that's the
is.
thing. I mean, that's sort of
Maybe
how they've been
Roger.
setting it up, you know?
Yeah, or maybe it's her mother. I don't know. It's there's, because we're trying to figure out who it could be. Azrael has these army of angels, and there's the witches. Roger very well could be, unless there is a new character in season 3 when they cover the Amber Spyglass that we don't know about. Because obviously there's a lot of biblical references. I mean, this is like a children's story essentially. I mean, these novels were written like decades ago.
Yeah,
but
it's a young adult fantasy. Yeah, for sure.
But oh man, I would like to see what Roger's role is, because as we see with the post-credit scene, it seems that Roger's in like this like abyss, this really random like void. Like you see Roger and then you just hear oh my gosh, Eve, oh my god, whatever, Lyra say,
Lyra, yeah.
Like I'm still gonna call her Lyra. There's no way I'm gonna call her Eve. She's like, like, what is this place? And it's like, is Lyra in some kind of trance that her mother put on her, or what's going on? Because
some state of limbo or whatever.
because we see Lyra's like sleeping, and then the other witch gets devoured by one of the other Spectre, RIPs or whatever, whoever witch that was. But it seems Serafina Peckler is still safe, so she's probably gonna come back and be like, holy crap, they're both gone. Or I mean, Will's there because he kind of like takes over his father's coat or whatever it is. But it's weird because like Mrs. Coulter, like, she finds Lyra and it's like, how did she get her on that boat inside of the trunk within whatever trans that she's in?
Well, the the specters are kind of like her transportation device now.
That's very true. She has a whole army of these Dementor-esque, like just pure evil liquefied things floating around. We still don't really even know what they are. We just know that they're attracted to adults that carry dust. But Mary as well, I kind of wanted to touch on her. I wonder where she's going, because like
she sort of felt like an afterthought this episode. Like it was, I mean, she was there and I understood why she was there, but her purpose is still very unclear. And maybe that's purposefully so, but it just felt like ever since she arrived in, she went through the window and everything like that, it felt like she really sort of took a back seat, and they just sort of like paused her arc, and she made baby steps for the rest of the season. And I understand why. I mean, it is ultimately, like, this season is ultimately Will's story, I think.
I would say so.
With obviously some, Mrs. Coulter had some big standout moments for sure, but like outside of those two, everyone else does sort of play a support. They're in a supporting role basically, and so like I understand why Mary wasn't utilized as much, but still, I don't know. It was just sort of like I wanted a little bit more from her, and that's an example of like a thread that I felt her arc this season didn't necessarily wrap up as nicely as I was hoping.
Yeah, it started off great, and it's like she's sent to this other world to do something important, but she doesn't know what that is. Clearly, the Spectres are not attracted to her. She's like the saint, Mother Mary. So following like those little like violet petals, and she takes the kids to the camp of the adults, which we still don't see. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, they've been talking about them all season. I thought we at least see them. The Magisterium is now in this world with their guns. They were they were there mainly just for like gunfight, because I think there was only one aircraft left, so that kind of
Well,
makes
there were a
sense.
few. There were a few, but
okay, yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Trying to see what I don't think anything else besides I really did like Azriel's his speech. I was like, I mean, if you're convincing angels,
It was great.
but
Yeah, his speech was excellent.
I was waiting for him all season. I'm like, there he is. But I do
Yeah.
agree with you. Yeah, it definitely feels like a thread was missing. I think from that episode we never got with Azriel, maybe there might have been a few things that kind of would have made more sense to tie up the rest of the season. Who knows? Hopefully, maybe when the Blu-ray comes out. I mean, I'm not sure if they shot it or not, or if it's half finished or if it's not finished at all. Maybe we'll get that extra episode on the Blu-ray copy when it drops. I think sometime early.
Well, I don't. I mean, they haven't. I don't know if they shot it. That's the thing. Like they had to cut it off. Yeah,
Yeah, because I know with Doom Patrol, it was kind of the same thing. There is a episode missing from season 2 due to COVID. They weren't able to debut it, but I think it's technically the finale of season 2. But I think when season 3 comes out, that finale will technically be episode 1 of season 3, wrapping up the events of season 2. But if this Azra episode was supposed to be between episodes 6 and 7 that we got, making tonight's episode 8, then that might be they probably would just like forget it in general. Or I really don't know. I don't know. It's a mystery, but I would like to see it. If possible,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we pretty much touched on everything, unless there was something you wanted to bring up before we wrap up here.
I just want to say that like the episode as a whole looks and feels like so epic. Like and this is stupid because we've known that the show has like a real but you can see the money being spent well with the series.
Yeah.
But like this episode especially, I think just had some really jaw-dropping moments that makes you go, wow, like this I don't think people give this show enough credit for how well it looks, for how well they utilize the money. I mean, like it's an expensive looking show, like it's impressive.
It really is. Like even when I first started watching season 1, I was like,
yeah,
wow, these demons, the quality of them. Obviously, the quality has improved since season 1, but it really is like it's really one of the best shows this year. Like it. I mean, there are others. It is a smaller story. It's probably more easily more manageable. I do know that the Amber Spyglass book is a little bit longer than the Golden Compass and the Subtle Knife, so maybe we will get at least 8, maybe 10 episodes next season. I really don't know. But yeah, man, I agree with you. A lot of people don't give this show the credit that it that it deserves, really. I mean, like we said, this entire time, we've been on this entire journey together covering season 2, and there really hasn't been like I guess you could say the season finale felt weak because of that lost episode we didn't get. But let's say if we got that episode, I feel like it would have just been a solid season all the way through. I know with The Mandalorian season 2, a lot of people, I think it was the second episode the first episode that was directed by Peyton Reed earlier on in the season. A lot of people weren't super crazy about with like the ice spiders, but then he came back, with the finale and blew everyone's mind away. So, I think it's just one of the best shows. I can't wait for season 3. I really can't. I'm just so excited.
Yeah. No, I definitely am too. I think that's where this episode really excelled, was in setting the stage for like an epic climactic showdown, along with delivering some nice payoff in this episode. Again, not all of it worked. I think some of it left a little bit to be desired, and it felt a bit rushed. Obviously, I think that additional
Yeah.
episode really would have helped things, but on the whole, I was pleasantly surprised. Well, not surprised, but I was pleased with it. Um, if we're comparing seasons, do I think that this was a better season than last season? I
Ooh,
don't
that's a
know.
tough one. I don't know.
I think I prefer the uh just like how adventurous that first season was, and it really felt like
Yeah.
a globe trotting epic. Like we were moving from place to place. It it
We had bear
the
fights.
pacing was it what? Oh yeah, we had the
We
bear fights.
yeah,
Yeah,
bear fights. Yorick did
yeah, yeah,
show up really quick in this season for like a
yeah.
shot. I don't know what he's doing. I'm like, he was a
He better
part of
be
the
back
promotion.
next season, man.
I
He needs to be
know.
back. Yeah,
He's part of the promotional for the season finale. I'm like, oh, is he gonna show up? I'm like, oh, it's literally
yeah,
the same shot that they showed in the
yeah, yeah,
promotional. I was like, okay, that's cool. But sorry, I didn't
yeah.
mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. So like, I think I preferred season one just a little bit more. I think it was a bit more consistent.
Mm,
But the characters, I think, had a lot more to do this season, and it felt like we got some really deep dives into the psyche of them, and it was great. It was another solid season. I mean, like, listen, the show is very consistent. I'll say that much, and yeah, I can't wait to see what happens in season three.
yeah, and for those of you who are not sure by now, they did confirm that a season 3 is coming because I believe and on the BBC in the UK, technically the season finale already happened last week, but we're America and we get everything late. Not really, but I think it's just the way that I think it's just the way everything kind of like the deal that they had set up. But I was actually very surprised that I didn't run into any spoilers because I follow there's two His Dark Material official verified Twitter accounts, and like they just did a great job of like not spoiling anything. And I mean, I guess in a way, unfortunately, not a lot of people that we know at least watch this show, so it's
Hmm.
not like a lot of people. It's not like when the I swear to when the season finale of Mandalorian season 2 came out, like I literally had to get off of Twitter because people were watching it at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. as soon as it dropped. People are pushing out their reviews, which is fine, but everyone's just like boom, 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 boom. Like I knew exactly what happened. I knew who showed up at the end of season 2 before I even
Hmm.
watched it. And I was like,
Hmm.
thanks, film Twitter. I was just cruising along. I understand people are excited, but for this, it's, hopefully I'm really hoping we get a bigger audience for season 3.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
to
same.
kind of, share our love for the series. And, this is one of those stories where, I feel obligated to go buy the books and to revisit the series and to find out even more Easter eggs that we didn't really get with the show. It's kind of like rediscovering the franchise for a second time. I did it with Game of Thrones, and I absolutely love it. There's so many side plots, so many side characters that obviously weren't able to be a part of these series. But it's just like rediscovering it for a second time. It's great stuff. But I believe that
Yeah,
pretty much
yeah.
wraps up our series, our season 2 finale. Of course, Griffin, thank you so much for going on this journey with me through season 2. I would definitely love to do this again as soon as season 3 ramps up, whenever that is. We're in the
Dude, you
middle
got it, man.
yeah, and hopefully, we can get some more His Dark Material fans on, and to discuss, each episode week by week, because I
Absolutely.
just love TV. Like I love TV episodes. Like I love movies. Don't get me wrong, but there's something about talking about like that big show or like a show you're really interested in with somebody like week to week and
Yeah.
just gushing over it.
Yeah, no,
But
for sure, dude. It's always fun when you can go in every week about a show that you're passionate about, and it's yeah, it's awesome.
yeah, it's great stuff. But yes, so that does conclude today's review. Thank you all for listening at home, and don't forget to like and subscribe to us on the podcast platform of your choosing. But we actually tweeted out a few days ago we're on Audible now, so if you listen to
Woo!
the podcast on Audible, there
Let's
you go.
go.
Congratulations. While you're at it, go
Let's
download His Dark
go.
Materials. If you're not a book reader, there's the audio books. You go on there, you get two for one. Listen to us, and you get to listen to some great books. And of course, make sure to check out the other shows on the Drive-In Podcast Network over on the Music City Drive-In website at musiccitydrivein.com. The link will be in the description of this podcast. And of course, Griffin, let everybody know what's coming up on your channel on Film Speak.
Yeah, so if you haven't done so already, head on over to the Film Speak channel. You can check out my reviews and analyses of Wonder Woman 1984 and Soul. I've got a lot of positive reception to both of those videos, so thank you for those of you who might be listening who have watched that. But yeah, if you guys are interested in my takes on those, you can head on over to the Film Speak channel. Got a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline. A best of 2020 movie mashup and a video essay on Tenet coming January 5th. So definitely subscribe to the channel, and then give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller.
There you go. Yeah. So my mom's officially caught up, by the way, in His Dark Material. I think
Amazing.
she's watching the season finale as we speak. But also, I showed her Wonder Woman 1984. She did not like it.
There you go.
I don't know what it is. She likes some superhero movies, but she just did not like it. She said she liked the first 30 minutes, with the the flashback in the mall scene. But she said she didn't like it.
Everyone loves that.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm indifferent to it. It's not. I will never say it's the worst comic book movie ever, because never. Like, I enjoyed it, but it's not my favorite. But I gave it like a 70 out of 100 on our review, which for me, I felt like that was fair. I mean, I don't know. I'm definitely gonna buy it. Like, I'll watch it again. Like, I still liked it. I had a great time with it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, of course, everyone, again, thank you for listening. That was Griffin, and my name is Christian, and we'll see you guys when season 3 drops.